Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Behind the Post. Our next guest is passionate about helping employees from brand new to C-suite to develop their personal brand. She's worked in social media for almost a decade now and coming up to 3 years at WalkMe, where she is the head of social media. So let's meet our guest, Aliza Hornstein. Aliza, are you ready to go behind the post with me?
I'm ready. Let's go.
I'm so excited to have you here because I feel like you're just an amazing guest to have to talk about personal branding. And I know it's something you're so enthusiastic about. But before we dive into that, please can you let our listeners know who may not know already, what is WalkMe and what does your role entail?
Sure. So WalkMe is a leading digital adoption platform company. We basically help companies do make their technology easy to use. And you might not even be aware that you are using programs that have WalkMe on them. And my time at the company has just been climbing the ladder through social media. I currently head all the content that goes out, including our advocacy program. And yeah, that's what I do day to day. Everything social media lands on my lap.
Amazing. So I know, as we've touched on briefly already now, that employee advocacy and personal branding are two topics that you are incredibly passionate about. And I know you're also really passionate about how personal branding can take employee advocacy programs that step further. So the first thing I want to ask you is, why do you feel this way? And why is personal branding so important?
All right. Well, I think that um, we're living right now in an era where people are understanding that being active and being themselves on social media for the sake of their career growth is incredibly important. If you just see the absolute boom in content that's going out, it's not all corporate. People used to say it's a professional network. LinkedIn is a professional network. It's not Facebook. It's not Instagram, and that's not the case anymore. People are really embracing the fact that they're whole people. They bring their whole selves to work, including their personal lives. So when you take, a company, for example, like Octopus or any of the other companies that provide employee advocacy platforms, you see that there's this need for companies to provide their employees with something to be excited about, to be able to share brand content, and they feel like they're two separate things, but they're really not. So where I come in and I start like standing on my soapbox and talking all about this is where they meet, which is, in my opinion, right from the beginning all the way until the end. Um, when we tell an employee, I'm going to provide you with brand content so that you can be, an advocate or an ambassador for this company, we're basically saying take our authentic content and put it out under your name. But if we teach our advocates to use that content to be authentic to themselves, and then put it out, then it goes that much further. And then it's a win-win in every way. So, that's kind of my spiel on that. And it's kind of taken off. Done a lot of podcasts, a lot of workshops on this, especially at WalkMe, of course, for the employees, but also globally because we've come to a point now where people see how important it is.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I just want to mention now that, as you said, you've done loads of podcasts and loads of webinars and workshops on it. So if anyone wants to tune into them, go to your LinkedIn and you can see all the things that you've done, because I know you put out a lot of value there and there's a lot of explanation and takeaways that people can gain from you. So I just wanted to spotlight that as you said it.
Thank you.
Of course. So I agree with you also. When I'm scrolling through LinkedIn, I'm seeing people's posts a lot more than I'm seeing brands posts. So there
Absolutely.
really is a massive value in it, and bringing in that your personal brand can really help you stand out. And honestly, from seeing your posts on LinkedIn and speaking to you, I feel like I'm speaking to the same person. Like I really do feel
That's
like
good.
who you are on LinkedIn is who you are in this conversation and from conversations I've had in the past with you. So I'm wondering, for our listeners that haven't seen your post, like I'm lucky enough to have seen, can you share examples of the ones that you posted on LinkedIn to give them a bit of inspiration?
Sure. So first of all, feel free to connect with me. Love that. But I think that the top examples that I have that have really gone way farther than I intended them to is, even I have an example from 2 weeks ago, and I posted this hilarious picture. I just came back to work from maternity leave, and our baby is still home working with us because she's like our little office buddy. And I took a picture of her peeking over my husband's shoulder from his desk, looking at me. And it was it was in jest that I said, this is what happens when you have a baby in the winter months and summer comes and there's no daycare. But what it ended up being was, um, dozens of comments of people saying like, this is the life of the working parent. And we ended up having a whole conversation. And what ended up being in there was, wow, what a great employer you have who is supportive, who helps, and that's employer branding too. I'm so sorry, that's personal branding too. But it's a form of advocacy that's not through the company. It wasn't through a platform. It was for myself and my own personal branding that ended up hitting a note for both the company where I could tag them in the comments and be like, yes, the only reason why I'm able to be successful at work right now, 5 minutes after maternity leave is over, is because I have this great workplace. And it doesn't have to do with their technology, but it does support their employer branding, efforts. And it's, a big piece of my life is the fact that I work from home and I have 5 kids. So everybody's winning when I post something like that. And that's kind of like a more personal brand where it's tied into, company advocacy. But a different example on the opposite side is when the company puts out, for example, if I put something on our advocacy board about an event that we're having, I'm not just going to say, hey, we're having this event, join us, because that's what everyone's doing and no one cares. Like, and I think that that's really necessary for people to understand that when they're sharing company content, does your audience really care? Does your audience do they have any stake in the matter? Are they interested at all in this event that you're throwing that has nothing to do with their field? But then if you kind of add your personal side to it, I am so excited that I worked on this event and I came back to work specifically for this event and it was amazing. And here's what we did, and here's the stats, and here's the cool personalization, and here's the amazing content that we put out. And now it's personal about me and my effort. That's also helping. And that is something that I encourage my advocates to do is to find that trigger, the emotional trigger that makes them feel connected to the content and adjust it so that when they're sharing branded content, it's not just like, here's the branded content that we're providing you. Go for it.
And also so important because then the posts aren't the exact same that are going out that people are seeing. And you can also
Absolutely.
take pride in your own work. Like if you worked really hard on a marketing campaign or a product launch or development, and you say like the journey it was for you, maybe you add a little anecdote about it. It also makes other people relate with you more because it's to you,
Absolutely.
not really as much to the brand. So I think that was a really good
Absolutely.
example.
And I
Yeah.
agree with you. And I have to say that something that you just said that really hit on it is the fact that if people can connect with you. That's what you're looking for. Everything that you put on social media is supposed to make somebody else go, wow, that made me feel something or that made me relate to something. So I'm going to engage with that. So if you want them to engage with company content as a social media manager who's putting content on, you've got to teach your people how to turn company content into something that they can feel their own connection to. Because if they don't feel it, their audience isn't going to feel it.
Exactly. It's so important. So with that and like company content that you're giving to your advocates, what do you think is the right balance between personal and company content when posting on LinkedIn?
So I think it's kind of personal. The amount that people want to share is going to come from what they're comfortable with. Being personal on LinkedIn, I have an easier time with younger folks on this, people who are kind of used to sharing their life. People who are a little bit more professional and still see LinkedIn as this buttoned up place to only talk about product have a bit of a harder time. That being said, there's a trigger for everybody. And so finding the balance, it comes from where they feel like they're able to share without crossing a line. So I personally like to tell people if you're starting out, go 50-50. Like if you're trying to build up your calendar and you're not sure what to do, then do 50-50 until you find what works for you, because very quickly you'll see what your audience responds to and what they don't. And then it's easier to kind of build from there. So for newbies, like start what works. There's really no wrong way. I always just say just start. Like by
Yeah,
not starting, you're doing way more damage than starting without the perfect proportions.
absolutely. And not like, oh, I'll start tomorrow. Oh, I'll think of a post for next week. If you don't do it
Exactly.
today, you're not doing it next week. So you just have to jump into it and just start. It's scary, but taking the leap is the best way to do it. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, for sure. So when it comes to, you mentioned before about how making sure your employees take the branded content or the company content and they have to add their own personal story to it and their spin on it. So how do you actually encourage the employees at WalkMe to make their content their own? Like, what do you actually do to make sure they actually get to that end result?
All the gamification. All the gamification, that's the first step. That's like the how do I get people to actually sign up and stay on? But I have to say that I think that the feedback that I've gotten the most has nothing to do with prizes and points and, you know, like those kinds of incentivization programs. Most of it's actually been the workshops. I give regional workshops. I'm going to say every quarter or two. Have to get back into it. Just came back to work. But I give a regional workshop for anyone who wants to sign up about how to use the program itself from a practical point of view. That's like a very short run through. And then the rest of it is how to develop your personal brand, how to turn company content into something that you feel authentic and it's like that you feel proud of. And those workshops have gathered a lot of attention. They've grown every time we give them. People take them over and over again. They come back over and over again because they change and they evolve. And those workshops themselves, in my opinion, have been the absolute key to success with our program, which we call ShareMe. And
I love that,
and
Shemi.
people, yeah, I know, we're everything at Walk Me ends with a me, but we're this is ShareMe, and it's been amazing to see the growth, because I think that it's always easy when we start these employee advocacy programs, and I've seen this like when I worked in an agency and we would launch these programs, and there would be tons of people would join because they'd see the marketing we'd put behind it and the games and the the gamification and the incentivization and the prizes and the whatever. And then slowly it goes down. And then you have like your champions who are always using it, who are always interested, who know the importance and they understand it. This way, by supporting them with tools so that they know what they're doing, not just from a practical point of view, but be able to take the content and turn it into something that they feel like they want their audience to see. It's something about them and explaining it from the point of view of like, you have a personal brand. And if you take this random piece of company content and you turn it into something that you feel echoes your authentic voice and supports your personal brand, I mean, like you're winning. It has nothing to do with the company anymore. Everything has to do with you and your career growth and your expertise and how you position yourself as a thought leader. So those workshops have been absolute gold. I have them in multiple different lengths. I have given them in under 15 minutes. Like for the busiest
Wow.
sales teams, I've literally sat here and been like, take notes. We're gonna go through this really, really fast. And then I have them up to an hour, 2 hours is the longest one, the longest version that I've given, where people ask a lot of questions and they walk away feeling really, really comfortable with how to do it.
Yeah.
Um, I don't see a downside. All the social media managers who are running advocacy programs, like this has been the key to success for us and our team.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say quickly also the 15-minute ones are so good because we know salespeople are very, very busy.
Yeah.
So just 15 key points, takeaways. And if like you need to do maybe a longer one once a quarter, once every 6 months, I don't know what your cadence is like, but you can always have the longer ones and the shorter ones when
Mhm.
they need like a bit of a refresher. But I'm interested, how do you actually encourage them to get started in these branding workshops? Like, what's the agenda? How do you make sure that they leave that workshop and they actually do what you're training them to do?
I think that people go onto LinkedIn and they see what other people are posting and they say, wow, this person posted about, their coworker and they posted a selfie and they got 200 likes in 2 hours. That'll never be me, so I'm not even going to try. So I think that the most effective part of these workshops that really convince them to join and get started has been to prove to them that they can do it too. And that consistency makes it happen. And I show it from my own stuff. I've been on LinkedIn for years. I don't have a big following because it's a little bit of a shoemaker's children thing, go barefoot
Yeah.
situation, like everybody else has great personal brands except for me. And and I show them like the difference. Like I can post 5 times a week and one of them will have like, I don't know, 50 likes, like nothing exciting, and the rest of them will have something bigger and more exciting. And I don't even know necessarily why one personal brand post did better than another personal brand post, except for like the obvious best practices. So showing them that consistency is key and showing them that growth is slow, is usually the thing that convinces them. Like, I don't want to show up and have big promises. I don't ever show up and say, start posting and, you'll have job offers and you'll have, people showing themselves and inviting you on podcasts and being a thought leader and this and that and whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I don't show up like that. I say, like, build something solid, build your foundation, do it properly. Here's how you start. And most people walk away saying, like, oh, I can do this. It has to be achievable. No big
Yeah.
promises. Everything has to be consistency and achievable. And here's how we're going to do it. And anyone can do it. Just get started. Like,
Yeah.
this is the, it's a motivational speech. Like, let's be honest, like most of the time, it's like a big pep talk, but people walk away
Yeah.
and they do it. So,
Yeah, that's good. It's also like you could have a post that you think, oh my God, this is going to do so well. This is such a great post, and it actually flops. And then you can have a
yeah,
post you wrote in like 5 minutes, you didn't think was going to do so well, and it performs, like the results blow you out the water. Like you don't know, and it's consistency. And like the biggest thing is, okay, if your post gets a few likes, keep it up
right.
there. You don't know when the algorithm
Exactly.
picks it up again. Also, just having that content, if the algorithm never even picks up again and it doesn't suddenly explode and go viral, like you still have this like bank of content that's on your LinkedIn
Absolutely.
that is a lot more than if you keep deleting them when they don't perform well. And it looks
Oh,
more,
no deleting.
no
No
deleting.
deleting.
That's a rule.
It is in my big things you don't want. I have a section called things you don't want to hear, but I'm gonna say anyway, and that is one of them. No deleting. No deleting, not ever. Like, turn off notifications so that you don't check it every second, but like also don't tie your self-worth to like the fickle LinkedIn algorithm.
Yeah.
Like like who doesn't know that feeling, like you said, of like posting something that you think is really gonna hit a lot of, it's gonna turn a lot of heads and whatever, and then it's like totally flops. Like, anyone who posts consistently is familiar with that, but anyone who's just starting would feel super discouraged. So like I always say, like, be prepared.
Yeah, yeah.
Be prepared. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Consistency. Keep
Definitely.
going.
I think it's one of those things, it's almost like you're so nervous that people are going to see, oh, I posted online, no one
Right.
liked it, so embarrassing. No one notices. No one
No,
knows. So it's okay. And I think that's a big one of the big fears in posting, especially thing when it's personal branding and not as much employee advocacy content. Because if it's more personal, it happens with both, but especially if it's personal, I think that's something that people might be disheartened by.
for
Um,
sure.
so with that, I'm wondering, what are the common challenges that advocates you've worked with have faced when building their personal brand, and how did you help them overcome them? Is there anything specific you've noticed?
Yes. I would say the biggest hurdle is just being comfortable and speaking in their own voice. Like, people put on what I call LinkedIn voice.
Yes.
People, this like, in my experience, my tenure as a, like, and you're like, who talks like that? Like, talk like a person, because this is social media. Like, no one is here to read your, talk like your actual self. And actually, that's a great tip that I heard from someone once. I can't remember who, and I wish I could credit it. So if you hear this and you know it was you, like, ping me. But they said that they struggle to write, but they're such a good speaker. So they do talk to text, and they'll talk their post and it'll be in a text form, and then they kind of fix it up and
Wow.
they post it out, and it really sounds like them, and that's
Yeah.
so much better. So I'm a writer, that's not what I need, but I have found that that helps a lot of people. Sorry, that's a side note. But I think that that's the biggest hurdle, is like people not knowing how to talk like themselves. Like, they sit
Yeah.
down to write on LinkedIn, and it's like you can see them like fastening a tie, like putting on a
Yeah.
top hat.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Feels more like writing a cover letter. You don't need to be like that.
Yeah, like, just be yourself. And
Yeah.
people suddenly look at me and they're like, I don't know who I am. Like, you can see it on their face. They're like, oh, I have no idea what my authentic voice is. I'm like, we're having a conversation right now. And you're
Yeah.
talking to me about the things that, are important to you. And so just write them down. Like, it doesn't have to be
For sure.
so overwhelming. So yeah, I would say that's the biggest hurdle for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that that talk to text thing is a big help. And I think that just keep going helps too, because sometimes I give up and I say, okay, post it as is. Next time, try again and let's see the difference. And
Yeah.
then they always see a difference. And then the point is made, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also so true that sometimes I think people also struggle to write their own posts or edit a post, whatever it is that's going on LinkedIn, because they're trying to find that language that they think is LinkedIn appropriate. But
Right.
honestly, the posts that I interact with most when I'm scrolling on LinkedIn, and the ones I love the most, are the ones when you can tell and you can see their personality through it. Honestly, whether that
Absolutely.
is the personality is a little bit on the more corporate side because you're in like financial services or a law firm maybe, or like if there's that stage in your career where you do have to have that little bit more of a different personal brand, I still like it because I know that it's how they actually speak,
A
as
hundred
well as
percent.
somebody like when you're posting, I can see your personality in your post because you're writing as you, not as much as you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I couldn't button this up even if I tried.
It's
I,
good. We like
I
it that
have
way.
tried. It doesn't work. But I totally agree with you 100%. The way that you said that was really hit the nail on the head. I just think that it all comes back to being authentic. Like if you're not authentic in the
Yeah.
post, your readers are going to immediately see it and people can smell inauthenticity from a mile away and no way are they going to engage with it. And it's just
Yeah.
like, it's too bad. Like you put all this effort into your post, at least make it something that people are going to want to engage with. And people want to engage with people. They're not engaging with the words on the screen.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. They want
absolutely.
to relate to you and they're going to relate to you if it's your personal authentic voice, as you said. Um,
Exactly.
so with all this training that you've done, these amazing workshops, what benefits have you seen from your employees actively building their brands?
Okay. So, aside from the fact that people get um, a lot of job offers, which is like probably not something that we should talk about very often, but like people they do, like because they catch the eye. For me, I'm just gonna say it from my side. I get a lot of job offers and I've made job matches. I'm not looking for a job. I'm happy with where I am. So I like say, well, I have people in the field who I know who would be interested, and we've made matches like that, and it's amazing. So that's an aside. I think that that's a good way to for people to use their personal brand for good.
Yeah,
But I would say that the biggest benefit has been people getting more exposure of who they are in the professional world. People going on podcasts, people being featured in articles. You know, you don't need a PR team. I mean, obviously you need a PR team at work, but you don't need them to like focus on you specifically, especially if you're kind of like me. I'm just a cog in the wheel. I'm nobody important. I mean, like I'm not a senior or anything, and I sit here and I do my work and I like have a life. But I've done a dozen podcasts because I keep writing about them and I keep expressing myself on LinkedIn. And I would say that people come to me and they say, "Oh, I wrote a post and I thought it was doing badly, but then someone messaged me and they said, I saw your post about this and I'd really like for you to talk about that on a podcast." Is the best feeling in the world. And it happens all the time. And then once you've done one, you're more likely to do more. So it's like people want these opportunities. They want to be featured. They want to be invited to speak at events. They want to be part of the person who's standing on the stage in the spotlight, but they're afraid to start with the smallest rung, which is posting on LinkedIn. So
yeah,
get started so that you can have these other opportunities.
for
And for
sure.
me, just watching people at work gauge those opportunities and see how they use them as jumping um, blocks or whatever they're called for the future has been extremely satisfying.
For sure, building your personal brand on LinkedIn positions you as that thought leader and an expert in your industry that
Yeah.
opens so many doors for you. It's almost like you don't need a resume or a CV anymore because you've got
Oh, you totally
whole
don't.
personal brand on LinkedIn. So it's really amazing the doors that it opens and how you've explained that that's happened for your advocates and for you as well. And I feel like I can't really go through a personal branding content writing episode without asking you about AI, because I think this is a big thing and a big topic, and AI staying with us. ChatGPT is not going anywhere. So I'm wondering how you feel AI has had an impact on personal brands and authentic voices.
It for sure has. It's kind of depressing. I'm sure if you're an avid LinkedIn scroller, you've noticed that all the posts kind of taken on this same tone. Um, and it's super depressing as far as I'm concerned. Everything kind of sounds the same, and you can spot a post written by AI from a mile away. Now, I'm the first person in mind to say that writing tools with AI are changing the industry in a positive way. I don't think that this is the place to use them. I actually wrote out for my last workshop that I did last month um, a chart on how to use AI for personal brand content writing in a positive way. Most people think you ask AI and you say, I want to write a post about blah, 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 and then it spits it out, and then you copy and paste it and you say, oh, I'll just change a few words here and there, and you put it out. The tactic that I recommend to people who are struggling to write, especially people where English is their second language and they struggle with it, and so they're relying on AI a lot, is instead of saying that, I say, ask AI to give you ideas. Hi, Jasper, ChatGPT, whoever, can you please give me 5 ideas for LinkedIn posts about whatever it is that you're interested in or your field or what you want to be seen as a thought leader. And those prompts will give you something to write about. And you write about your feelings on those topics. Then it's authentic and you had a prompt that's kind of gotten you started, because I think that when people talk to me about creating their own personal brand content for LinkedIn, that's the thing that they say. they struggle with is like not even knowing what to write about.
Yeah,
So getting the prompt and then writing the post themselves and then posting it is the way smarter way to use AI, in my opinion, for this. And I hope that people will kind of, a little bit press the brakes on using just straight what ChatGPT or Jasper, any of these other writing tools just give them, because it really is inauthentic and you can smell it from a mile away. You really
for sure.
can.
You can see it, like when it's ChatGPT, the phrases,
Oh, for
when
sure.
it's the emojis, and like which ones, certain words. But AI is really good in helping you get your feet off the ground when you have writer's block, when you, like you
100%.
said, to get ideas. If you're not sure how to post online, and advocates are scared of that, ChatGPT and AI and Jasper and all these tools can really help you start. But as you said, I
For sure.
really agree with you. It's a tool to use to help you, but when you're coming to write on LinkedIn, as we said before, when it's someone's personality or not. And
Yeah.
that's also like LinkedIn language or AI. Like people want to connect with your personality. So I definitely agree with your opinion on that.
Like, is there
And
anything worse than like going to engage with someone whose content you've really liked in the past and they start a post with this in this ever evolving landscape of
yeah,
technology and you're like, oh
yeah.
no, they've been
Also
eaten by
realm.
the AI beast. No, yes, realm, yes.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So I can't believe we're already on the last question of this episode, but I'm so interested to hear from you. This is my favorite. I say this every podcast. This is my favorite question to ask everybody. You've been in social media almost a decade. You're clearly an expert in it, in employee advocacy, personal branding, and posting online. So I'd love to know, what is the best piece of social media advice you've ever been given throughout your career?
Go with the flow. I know that sounds crazy, but there's nothing that kills a social media content plan faster than this has worked for me in the past. Okay, like it's changing
Yeah,
so fast. Every day that you show up, LinkedIn is different. Every day that you sign into X, it's different. So be ready and be prepared to kind of ride that wave and, say, this is something new I'm going to try. It's freeing also. The fact that it changes all the time is freeing. So you're able to say, like, well, I don't know if this is going to work or not. I guess I'll try it. And being able to learn from the fails is also very, very it really can create an atmosphere of creativity because there's not a lot of space to feel bad about it. To kind of just take everything you learn from all of your posts and learn from it and move forward and keep trying and yeah,
definitely.
go with the flow.
Definitely. I think actually that is one of the biggest lessons I've learned working in social media. Things are going to change daily.
Yeah,
Things might not perform. Things you don't think are going to perform probably will really perform really well. And you just have to run with it and
yeah,
just experiment and keep learning from everything you're doing. Even if something is, like, quote, in quote marks, a mistake, that's something you can learn from. So
100%.
I love that advice. So thank you so much for joining me and talking to me about personal brand, employee advocacy, authentic content. You really are an expert on the topic, and this really shows it. So I know it's gonna be really valuable for our listeners. And as we mentioned before, if you want to learn more, if you want to see your workshops and your podcast and everything else you've done, feel free to connect with Aliza on LinkedIn. And yeah, that's it,
Thank you
I
so
think.
much.
Thank
It's always
you.
fun to talk to you. Thank you.